Thank you very much for having me here this afternoon. And prior to coming out here, we were sitting around in the back introducing ourselves to each other. And one of the other speakers said to me, "Oh, you're that guy that's part of the trifecta, things that we can't control during events." And he said, and I looked at him kind of strange, and he said, "Well, children, pets, and the weather." And one of the things that I'm here to tell you this afternoon is you can plan for the weather, and we can do a lot better job in planning for the weather. So how did I get here prior to today? I spent 20 years in the U.S. Air Force as an aviation meteorologist, traveled all around the globe, and in the last 10 years I've been working at 2 different software companies that specialize in providing weather decisions to individual decision makers on how to plan for events. And why is that unique? Because one of the things that I've noticed over my career is that it didn't matter if you were a 3-star general or you were the president of FedEx trying to deliver bombs or packages, you all had weather constraints, and communicating those constraints so that people could make decisions is critical. A lot has changed over the last 30 years. 30 years ago, this was high-tech technology of 30-watt teletypes, and when I first got into this business, we would use crayons and color on weather maps. And a lot has changed over that time, and now we have the power of the internet. And within a millisecond of a lightning strike occurring, I can get an alert on my smartphone that tells me exactly where that lightning strike has occurred. So a lot has happened in the world of meteorology and the science of meteorology that goes into predicting what's going to happen. In fact, our 7-day forecast is better now than our 1-day forecast was when I first got into this business. And it's really a testament of things that have happened in the last 30 years. So let's go back to August of 2011. And this is, the cities are a little bit hard to see in this particular radar shot, but the state is Indiana, and we're at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. And north of the fairgrounds, there was a symphony orchestra that was scheduled to play that night as well, that they decided to cancel based on the weather forecast. There was a band called Sugar Band that was going on in the fairground themselves, and this weather was approaching their particular location. And everyone's eyes were on all of the red blobs that you see on the radar, but that little thin line that you see out ahead of that, that's a gust front. And when that gust front rolled through, this is what occurred. Let me try it one more time. There we go. And you can see the weather still off in the background. The gust front comes through. And 7 people died. Over 58 people were injured. And things like this shouldn't happen in today's day and age at this event. There was 40 minutes lead time from the Weather Service on this event. There's still ongoing litigation. $60 million has been paid out to some of the victims already to this point from various agencies, and litigation, civil litigation is still going on from this particular tragedy. So it brings us kind of in a brief timeline of safety, what's happened over the last couple of years. This was one of many events that occurred, both big and small, and where accidents were prevalent. Everything from up in Canada, the Big Valley Jamboree, the Ottawa Blues Fest, the Pukkelpop Festival in Belgium, which had another stage collapse. And there was people in the industry, in the live event industry, that got together and they formed something called the Event Safety Alliance. They said, enough is enough. We're tired of not having best practices and things to do. Just like construction and everyone else has standards that they follow, let's build a series of best practices. And what happened out of that, we also formed a company called Weather Ops that provides weather to these events. But we produced something for the first time ever called the Event Safety Guide. This is available on the eventsafetyalliance.org website. It's a trade association that consists of a nonprofit. The guide is for sale. We have to print these and everything else, so we get a small fee for them. And it contains all of the best practices for planning a live event. And what's unique about this is that it covers everything from barriers to porta potties to weather and everything else in between. So check that out if you get a chance. The other thing I need to talk about is duty of care. This is something every event organizer should understand, because you have the duty of care for all of the people that attend your events. No matter what happens during that event, if you're not doing and following reasonable best practices, which are now defined in this guide, you can be held liable for those things, both from a financial standpoint and from a criminal standpoint. So I'm going to give you 5 quick things to help keep your next event safe. Takeaway number one, no one is immune. This is the University of Oklahoma, which is just down the road from our office at the National Weather Center. And yes, that is a real thunderstorm with lightning in it and the fans and the stands full of people. No one is immune to this. This is the lightning capital of the world in Florida, down here. Looking at lightning climatology real quick, you can see the number of strikes that have occurred across the United States last year alone. Takeaway number 2, there are experts out there. You should use them when you're planning your events. Real briefly, there's the National Weather Service and the things that they provide, and they provide overall guidance and warning support for the generalized public. And there's private companies like ours, Weather Decision Technologies, that takes that specific event and criteria and comes up with a specific forecast to take those decision aids and apply them directly to your event. There's also local media and TV, and one of the things you should know about this is that a lot of the individuals that are on TV, many of them are very professional and very good, but aren't degree meteorologists at all either. They're more interested in ratings than they are in the science of meteorology. So if you're watching the Weather Channel, you're probably not doing what a reasonable person would do to protect your event. Number 3, be wary of discounts and double checks, and double check all the figures. Math is hard. We're all here because we didn't want to be doing hard math. And when you're calculating wind loads and tents and other temporary structures, it gets down to the nitty-gritty. The wind gets exponentially more destructive the higher it gets. So the difference between 20 and 30 miles per hour is exponentially different. It's just not 10 more miles per hour. There's the stage collapse in St. Louis. And it doesn't matter if you're Jerry Jones and have a ton of money. You're still not immune from all of this either. This is the collapse of the Dallas Cowboys practice field facility in 2009 where 12 people were injured. And you can even appear in Popular Mechanics that they went through there and they did all of the analysis that was done on that structure prior to it blowing over, and they discovered that the math was wrong. And they didn't account for a lot of the things that occurred. Takeaway number 4, the pretty colors that you see in your cell phone app that you downloaded, that you're watching as the weather comes in, is not always the threat, just like we saw in Indiana. There's a lot of time spent in looking at a lot of the physical properties that have happened during thunderstorms, things like gust fronts, things like hail, and all those other type of perils that occur that you really, really have to watch out for. The most important thing is takeaway number 5, and that's the time to plan is not during the event. If you're standing on at the stage in Indiana, and you've got the sheriff, and you've got the promoter, and you've got the band, and you've got everyone else trying to make a decision on should they go on or not, it's too late. You've got to take all of these perils into account and plan for them weeks, if not months in advance of your event, and develop something that's called a severe weather action plan. How do you write that plan? It's pretty easy. You can go to the American Red Cross or FEMA or OSHA. There's an organization out there called Event Safety Operations that will help you write your plan, your severe weather action plan. And there's also a whole chapter devoted to it in the Event Safety Guide on weather. One of the things that we do when we're helping people write a severe weather action plan is we take and we look at the key weather triggers. Things that are going to trigger you to take action for your event. And it doesn't matter if that event is a Microsoft store opening, which we've done, kind of a small event, or if it's been Paul McCartney's latest stadium tour. They all have triggers that need, actions that need to take place when wind, lightning, hail, sometimes temperature, snow accumulation, depending on if it's a winter event or not, or things like freezing precipitation. So what we do is we break all of those things down into specific criteria, and we say, hey, maybe we should take the soft goods off the stage if the wind is blowing 25 miles per hour, because it'll keep that integrity of that stage intact, and the event can still go on. We're not just the event cancellation people. We're trying to develop this mean something to you. One of the things that we do is we can develop specific products that help you plan well before your event takes place. So 7 days out, we take all those triggers, and it's a little bit hard to see, but we put it on the left-hand side. And then we forecast 7 days in advance, green, yellow, red, of things that could impact your event. Is weather a problem for you today? I was told by a 3-star general a long time ago, if the weather is good, I don't want to hear from you. And we treat our customers the same way. But if the weather is bad and that line of thunderstorms is coming in, we're going to be there calling you, sending you an email, sending you alerts, things along those lines. Once you have your plan written, there's a process out there called StormReady. That's a national weather service program. You can become a StormReady supporter. This is the Van Lincoln Park. We helped them put their plan together prior to their 2013 tour. And we sent it into the Weather Service, and for the first time ever, they approved them, made them StormReady, awarded them the certificate, and discounted their insurance for the rest of their tour. Because they had a plan, they were following their plan, and after the ceremony, we actually saved 2 events for them. One in Nickelsdorf, Austria, and another one here in the United States, where we delayed gates in one instance 30 minutes, but the thunderstorms rolled through, everyone was safe. And in the second instance, wind picked up after a coastal passage, and they were to cancel the event, but the event went on anyway because the forecasting of the winds was stable over criteria. Kind of cool. So real briefly, this is probably one of the best ever safety quotes that you can find out there. But when anyone asks how I feel and how I can best describe my experience of nearly 40 years at sea, I say uneventful. In all my experience, I've never been in an accident or any sort worth speaking about, says Captain E.J. Smith, who was a captain of the USS Titanic. And obviously, after learning all this information today, there is an iceberg out there. It can happen to you. Weather is going to impact your event. You should plan for that. You should have a plan put in place and know that sitting underneath the water can be pretty dangerous. That concludes my presentation this afternoon. I thank you for your time.